Last year on May 4th, I was attending a Train the Trainer training course in Denver as I had just become a safety training specialist. This was my second day of training, and I expected it to go just like the day before. I was wrong. Unfortunately, I had argued with my husband that morning. I didn't know that when I hung up the phone, it would be the last time I would ever speak to him. That afternoon, my husband took his own life. He was the father of 2 children and the stepfather to my 2 children as well. He had a great job, lots of friends, and was very loved. What would cause someone who had so much going for him to commit suicide? Unfortunately, he lived daily with alcohol addiction and depression. Today, I would like to discuss suicide prevention. With the rates of suicide increasing in the world today, I feel it is so important for everyone to get involved. Why should you get involved? You may be the difference between life and death. You could be that hand that pulls somebody back from the ledge. After my husband passed away, I devoted much of my time to researching alcohol addiction, depression, and suicide. I became a member of the Suicide Prevention Partnership. I must have called them a few dozen times and asked an enormous amount of questions. I researched everything I could online, and I finally talked to other women in my shoes. As I started research for this speech, I interviewed a fellow survivor, a woman I have known since junior high school. So today I'm going to tell you how you can get involved and why you should get involved. As my previous speeches have already discussed the pros and cons and given you information about why people commit suicide, today's focus is on inspiring you to get involved, to help someone out, and to possibly save someone's life. I will begin with the obvious problem of one taking their own life. First and foremost, suicide is permanent. The Phil Donahue quote, "Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem," has been around a long while now and is heard frequently. I used to be absolutely narrow-minded when it came to suicide. If you took your own life, you were a selfish individual who cared nothing about your family or your friends. To this day, I still don't understand suicide. I still don't understand why people would commit suicide, but my view has changed a little. Someone who commits suicide can see no other way out. They don't necessarily want to end their life, but they are desperate to end their pain. The second and less obvious problem is how the survivors are affected in the article "Bereavement After the Suicide of a Significant Other" by Dr. Maurizio Pompili. Survivors often blame themselves. They risk depression, substance abuse, and their risk of suicide themselves increases. Suicide survivors also go through a roller coaster of emotions: questioning, guilt or shame, rejection or abandonment, and isolation. When I spoke to my friend and former classmate, Katie Bittler, she felt these symptoms just as I did. She originally reached out to me when my husband passed away because she had lost her husband in the same manner 4 years before. So how do we change what's happening to our friends and loved ones? Suicide prevention is possible. In the study I read with the same name, "Suicide Prevention is Possible, A Perception After a Suicide Attempt" by Aram Dushad, 80% of subjects studied believe their suicide attempt could have been prevented. Of that 80%, 64% of the subjects said that family members or friends could have helped, and 16% said society could have helped. Can you imagine that some of the subjects attempted to take their own lives, thought they could have been saved by society, not even friends and family members? One option for suicidal individuals is counseling and education programs. The Suicide Prevention Partnership here in Colorado Springs has numerous programs and counseling available, not only for the individual who is contemplating suicide, but for family and friends and survivors as well. There is a national suicide hotline, referenced here, 1-800-273-TALK, where one can call to get help. This help is also not only for those contemplating suicide, but for people who have friends or family members contemplating suicide, and also for survivors. Sometimes talking to someone, venting, sharing, explaining, and being listened to can give the person comfort, or at least temporarily change their perspective. The best part about the suicide hotline is that they're all volunteers. Just regular Joes who are there to help. They don't judge, they just listen. Some of them have personal experiences with a friend or family member who attempted or committed suicide. Some just want to help in any way that they can. Regardless of background or training, they all want the caller to live. What is another option? Do not immediately suggest that a depressed individual can be medicated or should be medicated. While antidepressants work well in most cases, there are many mixed emotions on whether or not an antidepressant can help. Some even list thoughts of suicide as a side effect. Ed Edelson wrote the article titled "Antidepressants Prevent Suicide" and commented on a 6-month study regarding the use of these medications. In the end, the lowest number of suicide attempts were among those who were taking antidepressants. In an opposing article, "Antidepressants Cause Suicide," the author Peter Breggin documented dozens of cases where individuals committed suicide while under treatment with an antidepressant. What could be different if we helped these individuals make a change? If we could get a friend or a loved one to talk to us, or even talk to anyone, like a counselor or the suicide hotline, that might be the push they need to get them moving down the right road. If you know someone who is struggling with addiction or depression, suggest they talk to someone. Some individuals will see this as an invasion of their privacy, says Eric Kane in the article "Forging an Agenda for Suicide Prevention in the United States." He goes on to say that other countries have a type of suicide registry, which reports attempted suicide cases and suicide cases. This is helpful for follow-up and continued support. However, many people would see this type of registry as intrusive, unethical, and unacceptable. So for now, what's next? Where do we go from here? Now what? I have given you a lot of information today, and I know it's a lot to take in because of the subject. It's hard to research and discuss as well. Suicide is a very real problem in our country. There are so many resources one can go to for information, for help, and for research. Survivors are not alone thanks to social groups and friends who have endured the same tragedies. So get involved. Today I ask that you take some time to reflect on your life, the past, the present, and what you hope for your future. Think about those who are struggling, who are having a hard time, who can't see a permanent way out of a temporary situation. I ask that each of you pay attention to those around you. Look for signs, reach out to people who may need you. I ask that each of you have compassion toward someone struggling with depression or alcohol abuse. Offer your help. Attend therapy classes. Go with that individual, help them, or maybe just be the shoulder they can lean on. You never know if your voice or your compassion or your listening can be the one thing that saves them. You never know when it will be the last time you speak to someone.